I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer politics. Israel LGBTQ report warns of rising hate crimes and organized attacks through Grindr. A new report from the Association for LGBTQ Equality in Israel is raising alarm over what is described as a sharp increase in anti-LGBTQ violence, harassment, and organized attacks across the country in 2025. The report says at least one physical assault against a queer person now occurs every week in Israel. Physical attacks made up half of all reported public space incidences this year, up from 32% in the previous report. Reports of extortion and threats also jumped from 3% last year to over 13% this year. In a nationwide survey included for the first time, over 90% of respondents said they experienced LGBTQ phobia over the past year, but only 7% reported it. The association documented over 300 incidences of LGBTQ-phobic harm this year, along with more than 2,600 anti-LGBTQ comments and over 1,300 abusive social media posts. One of the report's most troubling findings involves alleged organized attacks targeting gay men through dating apps, mainly Grindr. The association says it has documented more than 20 cases since 2024 in which fake profiles were allegedly used to lure victims into violent ambushes. The report also found transgender people account for about 55% of anti-LGBTQ harms, despite representing a small portion of Israel's LGBTQ community. This to me is both shocking in the violence being reported, but also shocking because I remember Benjamin Netanyahu going on and on about how, we should support the mass slaughter of civilians in Gaza because that would be better for queer people. And I remember LGBTQ groups for years in this country pinkwashing Israel, saying it's so great for LGBTQ people. And I would look at that and say, are you sure? I see instances occasionally of violence, and I see the government not always supporting LGBTQ people. And this report just continues to add to the alarming concerns of how Israel treats its LGBTQ population. Thoughts, people?
Well, according to the Times of Israel, which is itself a credible source from Israel, this is driven by two factors, two groups, distinct groups. The ultra-Orthodox, who one of their members famously, murdered a 16-year-old girl at Jerusalem Pride in 2015. After he got out of prison for assaulting another gay person. And then there's today's government. What Netanyahu claims now is no longer matching reality. Maybe back then it did. Maybe 20 years ago it did. But now his government is populated with ministers from religious Zionist parties who called himself a quote unquote proud homophobe and envisions Israel as a theocracy. So this line of excusing themselves, we are not, we're good for the gays versus Gaza, they throw queer people like you off the roof. It's a false dichotomy. The laws might be different, but in practice, they're the same.
I'm just going to say, unfortunately, we've seen a history of countries such as Israel being maybe, having less violence and then migrating toward violence. I think once we get through this administration, please God, that our country and our leadership will really put pressure on the other countries that are letting things like this slip with human rights worldwide.
I wish that I was that optimistic, but there are plenty of other countries, as in Africa, in Middle East, where we do support countries like Saudi Arabia who literally behead gay people.
Well, but then we need to look at that.
Yeah.
And we need to step back and we need to have leadership put pressure on.
No, that's very true. Absolutely. And sometimes the U.S. government has done things to try and end violent things. I noticed that the Biden administration did a lot with Sudan. They'll also remind you that when it comes to putting pressure on Israel, many members of the Biden Department of State resigned because they felt that so many human rights abuses were being done by Israel. So I don't think either party is going to do much on this.
But we've had inexplicably, politicians, and I'm sorry her name is escaping me, but traveling to Uganda. You have to look at things like that and say, who am I supporting?
No, I feel like this is one of those terrible things. And I do want to remind people, because we were discussing the issue of violence that happening to Israelis and Palestinians. Remember, if 7% of the population is queer And Israel killed 70,000 people in Gaza. That's about 5,000 queer people were killed by that government as well. So, like, I have no idea how you solve, how to deal with Israel's homophobia, but, like, we can't let them continue to get away with the rhetoric they've been using. And that is an LGBTQ news story. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBT stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.